Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was the apprentice of the Sith Lord. Sidious killed Darth Plagueis. That is all we know. But what if the Sith Lord did not go quietly like Sidious thought? What if his spirit lived? What if he found a new apprentice in the form of one Uzumaki Naruto? What if he found the perfect apprentice? Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard! Chapter 4, Taking Care of Business. The Sandaime Hokage had listened intently at Kakashi's report on the mission to Wave Country, listening to every word spoken, from the day they left to the death of Zabuza on the bridge, and Gato's end at the missing Nin's hand. The old Hokage's still sharp mind was picturing every detail in his head, every action, every word spoken, and every sense of something amiss in this mission. Something he had trained himself to do when it came to important missions like this one, as the councils had insisted Uchiha Sasuke be given a strong mission to ensure necessary stimulation of the boy's eyes to produce the Sharingan in order to further prove the child's legitimacy in being a member of the Uchiha clan, and extend their control of him even deeper. The one thing which the Sandaime Hokage found disturbing was Genin ranked shinobi named Sai being killed by two of Gato's thugs, as the child had been appointed by Danzo to the unit, and knew the old warhawk would never have one of his former root shinobi become weak. He also knew the pale-skinned boy would never lose so easily to two hired samurai wannabe goons, which brought into question, who was the boy's killer if not the two thugs, and if there was another individual, who was he? Where was he? From what Kakashi suspected, the killer was a man named Darth Sage, and recently appointed to be Gato's official business advisor. It could be a covert title for being the businessman's recently hired assassin that handled the man's dirty work or bodyguard to prevent any assassins from being hired. He would have sent Jiraiya to find out about this Darth Sage, but the Sannin had been so irate that Naruto had gotten away 4 years ago, and asked the Sandaime how this had happened. Jiraiya had always possessed mixed feelings on the matter, as he wanted to train Naruto like he had the Yondaime, but given the sensitive nature of the boy's status, and the fact the fox killed Minato had made the Sannin a tad spiteful. Only after hearing Naruto went completely psychotic, performing his own little massacre the same night Itachi did, Jiraiya began to understand the mistake he made regarding the boy, and leaving him to the wolves that hungered for blood. Since then, Jiraiya had been having his spy network working overtime and finding Naruto. His very name was made a red flag should it be spoken, but sadly it never came up, and the closest the Sannin ever even came to having a lead on the boy was in the Land of Iron. A boy matching Naruto's description had come up, as word had spread of an apprentice to a blacksmith, who made a sword of incredible quality, and had been sought after to make more. Jiraiya went to the Land of Iron right away, finding his travel right as a Sannin paying off once more, and found the blacksmith that apparently taught the boy fitting Naruto's description. Sadly, the master blacksmith was unable to determine where his apprentice went, but did indeed confirm the boy was definitely Naruto, even if he didn't tell the man his name, and the Sannin tried every possible direction the kid could have gone. Unfortunately, the boy went off the grid before even becoming a blip on in it, and Jiraiya had become frustrated at his failed attempts to track his godson down. If that is all, Kakashi, you may leave, said the Sandaime firmly before making a waving motion for the Jonin to leave his office with the majority of Team 7. It wasn't long before Danzo came into the room. Well, storming in was more like it. What's this I hear one of the shinobi I sponsored for the Uchiha's team had been killed? Said Danzo looking angry, which was rare given his control over emotions rivaled the Sandaime's, and he almost never showed them. Yes. Sai was killed officially by two samurai hired by Gato to attack the client's family, said the Sandaime while Danzo narrowed his one uncovered eye at him. And unofficially? Said Danzo with an edge in his voice. A third unknown party, said the Hokage, so he didn't give anything away. Who? Said Danzo tapping his cane on the ground slightly. I told you already, Danzo. It was an unknown third party, said the Hokage with Danzo frowning even further. It was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, wasn't it? Said Danzo at last with the Sandaime scowling at him. We don't know that. There is no evidence to support such an accusation and you know it, said the Sandaime knowing Danzo had been all over him over losing a potential weapon of the village. I know him. It has the demon's stench all over it. Had you listened to me, instead of playing the sentimental Hokage to that thing, Konoha would be the most feared and powerful village in all of the elemental countries. We would have ruled the world, said Danzo angrily while the Sandaime had face filled with anger right now. And had it been left up to you, the boy would be a mindless, emotionless monster, and your root conditioning would have risked the integrity of the Shinigami seal. Oh, I know what you would have done to the seal, Danzo. I know you would have eventually tampered with the seal, to accelerate the boy's progress in being a living weapon, and possibly even done something to take the Kyuubi out of Naruto. Maybe into one of your still very loyal ex-root subordinates perhaps? In case you are unaware of this, Danzo, only an Uzumaki can hold Kyuubi, as anyone else in his place, regardless if they were an adult or a newborn child, would have died. Do you know what would have happened then, Danzo? The Kyuubi would be free and this village would be destroyed. Your way held a greater level of risk than that of reward for greater power, said the Sandaime rising from his seat and glaring at his rival for this position of power. So what? Such risks are the price for greatness, said Danzo before leaving the room. There is such a thing as paying too high a price, Danzo. Of course, I don't doubt you would pay any price with the exception of your own life, said the Sandaime before going back to the paperwork around on his desk. Gato Kenpani HQ several days later. The massive corporate building stood tall among the other buildings in the second largest city in Fire Country, which was only a few hours away from the capital, and had several hundred employees working tireless. Each person did their job because they were paid to work, and leaving such a massive company would destroy the families of these employees of Gato Kenpani through any and all means at the disposal of Gato himself. When Darth Sage arrived at the building, he along with Haku in her spare Mist Hunter Nin shinobi attire, which he had let her recover from their hideout, plus the mask to help conceal her identity, went to the top of the corporate tower, and went up via the elevator. She had broken down shortly after coming to the realization Zabuza was truly dead and that Darth Sage was her new master until the end of his life or hers. Not much was spoken between the two since the transition, as Darth Sage had kept any and all conversations between them short to the point. Haku was his tool, as she had specified in her role with Zabuza, and the Sith Apprentice was enforcing that role much more than now deceased missing Nin ever did. There were no emotional attachments like Haku had been developing with Zabuza, and if the girl was honest with herself, she missed it. Haku, said Darth Sage quietly, but loudly enough for her to stand straighter at attention, and prepare for an order. Yes, Sage-sama? Said Haku quickly and obediently. Stay close. Keep your wits about you at all times when in the meeting room. Gato was a cutthroat businessman, who surrounded himself with other cutthroat businessmen, and will not take to being intimidated by us lightly. Should any of them get out of line, kill all those that do, said Darth Sage coldly, seeing Haku nod. In the short time since Haku had been with her new master, he had vocally expressed his disappointment on how she did not kill using the skills Zabuza had taught her, and would not tolerate it. The young Sith had told Haku that if she didn't kill when ordered to, then he would kill her, and without a single hesitation on his part. Darth Sage wanted a deadly tool that killed when used. Not a one that stunned unless he wished for it. I will not fail you, Sage-sama, said Haku, knowing this was her first real test in being his tool. I know you won't, Haku. I know you won't because you know the price of failing me, said Darth Sage while looking at her masked face for a second. They reached the top floor of the building, the Sith walking with a purpose, and his tool walking right next to him with a few inches of space between them, with Darth Sage in the lead. Everyone in their path jumped out of the way, some were thrown out of the way, and those that saw the latter did the former, with security being dealt with by Haku after a simple head motion command from her master. Using the force, the double doors to the office where the board of directors of Gato Kenpani were currently having an important meeting, and ironically enough deciding how to proceed now that Gato was no longer alive. What is the meaning of this? Who the hell are you? Said the CEO of Gato Kenpani, who was a portly man with a small acne problem on his face, and was married to a gold-digging wife, currently having intimate relations with a much younger male companion, with the parentage of their 2 children being put into question. My name is Darth Sage. As of right now, I own this company, and all of you, said Darth Sage, as he waited for Haku to throw the man out of his seat at the head of the table, and then sat down in front of the shocked board. Preposterous. Guards. Security. Said another member, who was of middle age, graying hair, skinny, and looked very much like a dying tree. Don't bother. They're indisposed of thanks to my assistant here, and you will be too if I feel your presence is bothersome to me, said Darth Sage, looking at them all with Sith eyes while sitting on his pre-verbal throne in the corporate office room. What right do you have to claim a seat among us here and or the right to take control of this company? Said a man in charge of the financial sectors in the West. Through these papers, said Darth Sage, as he brought a scroll, opened it, and slammed the various documents within onto the table. It was Gato's last will and testament. What? This is unbelievable. Gato signed over everything he owns to you? The money, the company, and everything else in his possession? Yours? Said the CEO, as he looked over the documents, instantly recognizing Gato's handwriting, his signature, and that it was all legitimate with the Gato Kanpani seal on them. Yes. Everything about this company is now mine. From its name down to the last bit of metal made to build every building with it attached. Do any of you have any problems with the idea of me running this company? Because if you do have some kind of problem, please speak up now, and we can resolve this, said Darth Sage calmly while sensing all of their hatred for him. Well, I won't accept this. I don't care what those documents say, Gato would never write, or sign them to give a kid control of this company in the event of his death. I denounce this Abamesike, said the member of the board that handled shipping for the northern sector of the elemental countries before he found himself unable to breathe while being levitated out of his seat. And with a quick snap of the neck was dead. Anyone else have a problem with me being in charge of this company? Said Darth Sage, seeing the people in the room looking at him in shock, and slowly shake their heads no since they were too afraid to speak. Time to make them dance to your tune, kit, said Kyubi with a grin on its face. Excellent. Now, as the new head of this company, there are a few rules I'm going to lay down, and they will be accepted. No excuses. First, my assistant here will be my eyes and ears when I am not around for the daily business of the company on account of other matters that require my attention. She will handle all business matters in my stead. Every order given by her will not challenge. If you do, I will consider it a challenge against me, and you will die, painfully. Second, you will announce that a new chairman of Gato Kanpani has been made, but for security reasons the new head of the company chooses to remain anonymous, and will stay that way until further notice. Third, if anyone here tries to betray me, or thinks they can through Haku here, everything that you cherish will be taken from you. Am I understood? Said Darth Sage with a hardened glare at the board of directors with them all nodding. Of course, Sage-sama. We understand, said the CEO with a fake smile on his face while internally sweating at the threat. Good. This meeting is over. Get out, said Darth Sage, seeing them all leave and shut the door behind them. Permission to speak freely, Sage-sama, said Haku within seconds of the door shut and a sound barrier was in place. You may, said Darth Sage looking at the masked woman slightly from his seat. Sage-sama, I have no understanding of the business world and how to run a company of this magnitude. I do not know if any decision I make in your absence will be correct or you would even approve of. Said Haku, a bit of fear in her voice while seeing him smile slightly at her. Fear not, Haku. The company itself is a means to an end, and any decision you make will not hurt me in the slightest, said Darth Sage calmly. I will do my best, said Haku, seeing smile more. You have a very calculating mind, Haku. That is crucial in running a company like this one because it's all about the choices you will make in my place, said Darth Sage while Haku nodded her head in understanding. What do you plan to do now, Sage-sama? Said Haku, as she needed to know what his intentions were now, and how she was involved in them. For now, we will take a tour of my new company, and what is being done here before we do anything. When the time is right, I will make my move, and you will only assist should I wish it, said Darth Sage, as he rose from his chair, and walked out of the room with Haku right behind him. Konoha. Wow. Your teammate Sai died. That must have been harsh, said Kiba, as his team was talking to two members of Team 7, and Sasuke wasn't bothered too much while Sakura was a bit shaken by it. Not really. If he died so easily at the hands of those weak thugs, then Sai was clearly weaker, and not worthy of being a shinobi, said Sasuke while lounging about in his seat at the barbecue restaurant they were eating at right now. At least the client's family was kept safe from harm, said Shino while Hinata agreed with him. An annoying family at that. A drunken old man, a sniveling brat, and smiling idiot for a woman, said Sasuke, as he didn't like the family, and didn't want to go back to Wave Country anytime soon. So, what was it like? Facing off against such a strong opponent? Said Kiba while Sasuke just scoffed again. They weren't that strong. If they had been, our mission would have failed, and the client would be dead, said Sasuke though his broken nose showed people he took a few hits. Your bandaged nose and flexing of the muscles around your body from remembering the pain say otherwise, said Shino having kept an observing eye on the Uchiha. What do you know, Aburame? You've never been in my situation and I doubt your calm persona does little against a former member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, said Sasuke while Shino didn't move a muscle. From what you mentioned, you only faced Momochi Zabuza once, and after that you faced someone else with an impressive ability to manipulate water into becoming ice. A bloodline very similar to the Nidaime Hokage if my memory is correct about what the man was known for, said Shino while Sasuke glared at his comment. That bitch got lucky. She's lucky to have escaped before I brought her back to make her rebuild my clan, said Sasuke glaring holes into the Aburame with his Sharingan active. If you say so, Uchiha. I have heard all I need to hear, said Shino getting up and leaving with Hinata right behind him since the way the Uchiha spoke of the female ice user had been disturbing to hear. Hey! Wait up! Said Kiba, who was shocked they left, and had to squirm a bit to catch up. Do you think that Haku girl is alive, Sasuke-kun? I mean, Kakashi-sensei's did say what his attack was meant for and he did strike her in the heart, says Sakura having been told by Kakashi of what his attack was and how it worked. If she's not dead, Haku better pray to Kami we never meet again because I will break her, and the girl will know her place, said Sasuke venomously while glaring angrily at the table with his Sharingan. Elsewhere in Konoha? So your Genin got a little roughed up and one of them died. That's a shame. My team is going to be given a C rank tomorrow, but nothing too dangerous, and I know they won't freeze in place from such threats, said Asuma knowing Nino was going to be a difficult nut to crack in breaking out of her Uchiha fangirl stage. What concerns me is this Darth Sage character, who apparently was Gato's advisor of sorts, and now he's in the wind without any way to track him, said Kakashi while reading his book. What about the Haku girl? In your report, you said the girl took a direct hit to the chest with your Chidori, and wouldn't last much longer. How did she escape the bridge? Said Kurenai seeing Kakashi shrug. I don't know. To be honest, I didn't really think she would survive long after being hit, and possibly fell off the bridge, said Kakashi while Guy shook his head. It's such a shame. A strong youthful girl like that being made to serve Momochi Zabuza and dying protecting him. If only she had been brought back to Konoha. Her youthful life would have been so much better, said Guy while Kurenai scoffed. Hardly. The councils would have demanded the Hokage put the poor girl in some kind of breeding program or forced to be made the Uchiha's wife, said Kurenai with disgust in her voice. How is your team doing, Kurenai? I bet they're quite a handful with all three of them being clan heirs, right? Said Kakashi knowing Kurenai had been given high expectations with her team and showing she had what it took to be a Jonin sensei. Shino is well trained in his bugs and keeps a cool head. Something Kiba needs to work on given his Inuzuka pride. Hinata is different from the usual members of the Hyuga we're used to seeing. She's shy, but I see a great deal of potential in her, and just need to find something to bring it out, said Kurenai while the girl's father had been less than helpful in the matter. Hinata needed something to turn her life around, or the life of a Hyuga branch member with the cagebird seal on her forehead was a possible future. I'm sure you'll think of something, Kurenai, said Asuma while Guy nodded in agreement to his words. Gato Kanpani HQ a few weeks later. What is your bidding, Sage-sama? said Haku, as she was summoned to the Sith's office, which he had modeled into a throne room, and kneeled before her master. In the past few weeks since the Sith had risen to power at Gato Kanpani, many different things had changed in the building, and not just the offices. First, Darth Sage had given all the employees an increase in pay. Even the board of directors got more to ensure they wouldn't protest the idea of giving their drones more money, and directing resources to forming a spy network using the employees of the company scattered throughout the elemental countries. Darth Sage knew that when people, regardless of being civilians or shinobi, enter a store, they have this compelling urge to talk without realizing they were being overheard. Such foolish and stupid people. Another thing the young Sith apprentice did was set up his place of residency within the top floor of the company itself and set up a private training area so keep his skills sharp while they kept growing. Haku was also granted a room to herself, to put in it whatever she wanted, and would train herself to get stronger. Darth Sage suggested she improve her taijutsu and expand her ninjutsu arsenal outside of water, since there could be times when where water would be scarce if not non-existent. At the same time, Haku wanted to wield weapons that would suit her for close combat, and her master, seeing this, had been able to acquire the perfect set of weapons for her in the pair of sais. The inventory of the various weapons the company illegally sold in various circles. Ironically, the sais themselves were from mist, used in a time before swords became the village's main weapon, and used the most out of the Great Five in terms of practice. With these weapons, her speed, and taijutsu practice being blended into it, the female ice user knew she would be a formidable warrior ready to defend the Sith with everything she had. I am heading out to go see the Kazekage in Suna later today. There is something going on there that requires my attention, said Darth Sage while Haku stayed kneeling in front of him. May I inquire to what the business with the Kazekage is, Sage-sama? Said Haku, as she sensed his already dark presence get slightly darker, and knew asking the question was the wrong thing to do. No. All you need to know is I will be heading there. Nothing more. You will run this company in my place until my return, which won't be for at least a week, and I don't want the others to know either. Even now they plot against me, yet won't do anything unless an opportunity presents itself, and I can't let that happen, said Darth Sage, sensing Haku's confusion. If you know they conspire against you, then, why not kill them? Said Haku, hearing her master chuckle from his seat of power. Because they amuse me. They scheme, plot, and squabble with each other over how to wrestle the company from my grip. They will find nothing, said Darth Sage, even with Haku's worry over this matter growing through the force. My master, what if they alert Konoha, and request you be removed by assassination? Said Haku before the room became consumed in the darkness of her master and seemed to be suffocating her in the process. It will make no difference. Any leaf shinobi sent against me will be destroyed along with their employers. You worry over nothing, Haku. I do not want a worrisome tool for a weapon or a bodyguard. Perhaps, I was mistaken in letting you live, and cheating death, Haku, said Darth Sage in a menacing tone, with Haku shaking her head no. I am not being worrisome, Sage-sama. I merely wish to protect you from all unforeseen foes, said Haku, finding the darkness being less oppressive if only slightly. I don't have any unforeseen enemies, said Darth Sage, with Haku nodding slightly in understanding. Forgive me, my master, said Haku, knowing any form of mercy he showed was like a canteen of water in a desert. Since I have to leave for Suna soon, I have no choice but to spare you my wrath, and show mercy, if only for the moment, said Darth Sage, in letting his threat to Haku's health in the distant future imprint itself into the girl's mind. I await your return, my master, said Haku before looking up to see the Sith wave her away, and she immediately left his sight. Already on the move, I see. You run the risk of being noticed by Leaf Shinobi and their spies, said Kyubi, seeing its vessel just shrug. I had a vision of the future. The dark side surrounded the Leaf in an upcoming event gone wrong that turned into an all-out battle. The dark side of the Force extends itself from Konoha to Suna and an area in Rice Country where I saw a large snake poised to strike at Konoha, thought Darth Sage, with Kyubi raising an eyebrow at him. And you're going to save the very village that scorned you, why? Said Kyubi while Plagueis just let out a chuckle. You're not going to save your village from destruction, my young apprentice. You are going to kill them slowly like one would use a poison to kill their enemies. That's very cruel of you, my apprentice, said Plagueis, Plagueis seeing his student smirk while Kyuubi's eyes widened. It is the Sith way, my master, thought Darth Sage, as he summoned a business carriage to pick him up before heading down, and ordered the driver to take him to the fire/wind country border once in it. I approve. Do what you need to do, my apprentice, said Plagueis from within the boy's mind. Yes, my master, thought Darth Sage, knowing he was going to make his master proud. Soon as several days later, a sandstorm had blown through the shinobi village earlier that day and had not stopped in the slightest, with the people living there having to take shelter. This was nothing new to them, of course, as sandstorm hit Suna every so often like a rainstorm in a jungle, and was just as serious if not careful. However, while others were locked inside their homes, safely tucked away from the cruel wind and sand rising around them, there was only one person not safely inside. He was Darth Sage, Dark Lord of the Sith. Well, soon to be Dark Lord of the Sith in a few years in any case. At the moment, he was walking to the Kazekage's tower, where the leader of Suna was currently spending his time working on paperwork, ignoring the storm outside, and going through the plans for the invasion that would come to Konoha during the Chunin exam finals. Due to the Wind Daimyo cutting their budget and hiring leaf shinobi over those in his own village, the Kazekage was feeling trapped in a situation that was making Suna bleed out slowly like a kunai cutting against the jugular. Orochimaru had come to see him about 6 months ago, talking about a way for Suna to rise to the top again, and knock the leaf down several pegs while learning humility through painful defeat. The Kazekage was reluctant to accept at first, but the more he listened to Orochimaru, the more things made sense, and the man accepted the idea of hurting the leaf. So, the plans for the invasion were nearly set. A map of the terrain around the leaf had been measured out to the last detail thanks to the Sanin's anonymous benefactor within the village, who knew the landscape even better than Orochimaru himself did, and had marked down the key places for their forces to strike. Snake summons, which the Sannin was providing them a temporary contract for, would be used to bash through the walls of the leaf from the outside, and Sabaka no Gara would strike from within in a classic pincer movement that would overwhelm Konoha entirely. Victory would be theirs. A scuffle outside the door brought him out of his thoughts, however, as he looked up from his work, hearing a brief cry out of pain and surprise, and was greeted by the door opening to see a robed, hooded figure enter the room. Looking past the door, the Kazekage could see his 2 bodyguards were dead, slain by the shadowy colored sword in the attacker's hands, and silently shut the door behind him with a gesture of his left hand. Who are you? Said the Kazekage, slowly rising from his chair and gauging this child assassin with his own eyes. Someone you need to shut up and listen to, Kazekage, said Darth Sage coldly while the man glared at him from behind his desk. You come into my village, kill my bodyguards, and you have the nerve to talk like that to me? Give me one good reason why I don't just set off the alarm that will have every shinobi in Suna running here to crush you? Said the Kazekage with a shadowy smirk being seen, if just barely, on the hooded form of Darth Sage, and seeing it grow to show sharp teeth. Because Kazekage-sama, it would be foolish on your part to order the death of your new financial benefactor, said Darth Sage, seeing the man's eyes widen at this news. You want to invest in Suna? In what way? Said the Kazekage, seeing the boy flick his sword clean of any residual blood on it, which the man personally hadn't seen, and then sheathing the weapon. In a big way, Kazekage-sama. However, I'm hesitant to do so for a certain reason, and I'm not sure you're going to like that reason, said Darth Sage before sitting down in the chair across from the man. And what reason is that? Said the Kazekage with suspicion, since for all he knew this was a test by Orochimaru or a spy sent here by Jiraiya of the Sannin, probing the village's loyalty. You plan to betray Konoha and side with Orochimaru in crushing it during the Chunin exams, said Darth Sage, seeing the man's eyes widen further in surprise. How does he know that? I've made sure no one knew of this. Thought the Kazekage while the boy just smirked. Calm yourself, Kazekage-sama. Being stressed over this isn't healthy. As I stated earlier to you, I'm hesitant to do business with you on account of the actions your village will take against the leaf, and you're siding with Orochimaru of the Sannin to do it, said Darth Sage with the Kazekage's eyes narrowing at him. So that's how it is. You're some kind of businessman with close ties to the leaf, and you are willing to do business with Suna in exchange for not doing what we plan to do. If we don't, you'll take your business elsewhere. Am I right? said Kazekage, seeing the boy just continue smiling at him. Mostly. I am a businessman, but I don't have any close ties with the leaf, and I too wish to see it destroyed. However, my method is much more subtle, quiet, and undetectable to those looking at the situation for historical purposes, said Darth Sage with the smile on his face growing, an almost amused tone when he spoke had filled the air, and seeing the Kazekage was greatly confused by his admissions about the leaf. I don't understand, said the Kazekage, seeing those eyes the boy had glow with some kind of darkness in them. Suna is officially on paper an ally of the Leaf Village, which is currently hosting this year's Chunin exams, and has put you place of opportunity twice over, said Darth Sage, as he saw the Kazekage once again looked puzzled, and the young Sith wondered if the man was truly an idiot. Enlighten him, said Kyubi, knowing the man needed some form of education on his part to properly understand the complexity of this situation. Let me explain. Your village will participate in the Chunin exams. You will use only your best Genin teams to enter, and show them off to prospective clients during the finals in their one-on-one matches. By showing Suna's potential, clients will come your village over the leaf, and show your daimyo the error of his ways in cutting your budget. That is the first part in which you benefit from the exams because you have the perfect team in mind to make it to the Chunin exam finals, said Darth Sage with the Kazekage just nodding his head and not bothering to deny what the boy already knew. I do have such a team. For the second part, you mentioned that could bring Suna back its place of greatness and topple the leaf? Said the Kazekage, seeing the boy's smile grow a little bit more. Yes. You aid the leaf against Orochimaru's forces that plan to invade, said Darth Sage with the Kazekage rising from his seat and anger on his face. No. Out of the question. The leaf has been bleeding us dry because of our alliance with them, and it's through that alliance the Wind Daimyo has given them missions instead of us. I will not help the leaf fight off Orochimaru, said the Kazekage, and saw the Sith's smile fade into a scowl. Sit down, Kazekage-sama. Sit down or I will make you sit down, said Darth Sage coldly while looking the man dead in the eyes. Why should I side with the leaf when I'm about to crush them? Said the Kazekage after several minutes of sitting back down in his chair. Because if you manipulate this just right, Suna comes out as the honorable heroes people think the leaf are, and bring even greater fame to your village. Think about it for 1 second. The infamous Orochimaru of the Sannin invade Konoha to crush it permanently beneath his feet, thinking his forces alone can grant him victory, and kill the Sandaime Hokage. However, Suna swoops in on your order, Kazekage-sama. You learn of it at the last minute, but have no time in properly informing the leaf, or its Hokage of the threat this impending invasion will cause due to time not being on your side. So, you mobilize your force to aid your ally, wipe out Orochimaru's troops before they can do any serious damage, and then Orochimaru himself caught between two villages with nowhere to go, said Darth Sage, as he spun the tale with such a honey-sweet voice that the Kazekage was entranced by it, and using the force on him through it all to nudge him towards the idea didn't hurt either. Such an action would make Suna look good in the eyes of the prospective clients and the different feudal lords watching the Chunin exams when Orochimaru strikes. I would have to wait until he causes damage to the leaf so everyone can turn their heads to see what is going on, and see Suna rushing in to save the day, said the Kazekage, seeing the boy smirk again at him. It's not your village. Let Orochimaru's forces have some minor fun when invading the leaf before you ruin it for them, said Darth Sage with the Kazekage, liking this idea more and more. It was far better than Orochimaru's plan, which he realized would make Suna look like backstabbing traitors, and untrustworthy in the eyes of potential clients. What was he thinking? So, we stay allied to the leaf, get the fame, recognition, and the clients away from them in one single day. What about you? What do you get from all of this? Said the Kazekage with a raised eyebrow. Me? Nothing. Except perhaps, I make the leaf look incompetent, arrogant, and basically make clients rethink hiring their shinobi for any missions that require such skills. I want the leaf to fall hard if not all the way. I don't want them to go away loudly with a bang, but in a silent whimper, and crying at seeing their so-called greatness being stripped away by my genius, said Darth Sage while the Kazekage was surprised a kid that young could be so vengeful against the leaf. Kami, they must have really screwed him over, thought the Kazekage while wincing at the realization Gaara would one day be vengeful too if he wasn't careful. Maybe having a high-quality seal master take another look at it wouldn't be a bad idea. To prevent Orochimaru from suspecting something, make it seem like you are still on his side, but don't meet with him, or any of his associates for that matter outside of the village. I sense he will try something in order to meet his own goals and does not have your best interests at heart, said Darth Sage, as the Force showed him the Kazekage dying in the desert, and Orochimaru taking his place just before the invasion. While the Sith didn't care what happened to the Kazekage in the long run, right now the man was a necessary pawn in this game, and Plagueis had always taught him to use the pieces on the board to their maximum potential. Something that Darth Sage planned to do with the Wind Shadow until the man was too deep in his own actions to recognize his own mistake when it came to dealing with the Sith. But Orochimaru wanted me to meet with several of his subordinates for the final stages of the invasion plan. If I don't, he'll become suspicious and question my resolve, said the Kazekage, seeing the Sith apprentice wave that worry away. Use what I did outside your office as an excuse. You have one of your subordinates in on this plan, meet up with them and explain the assassination attempt. The village is under high alert and you don't want any of the Leaf spies picking up on anything that might tip them off. Just remind Orochimaru that Jiraiya of the Sannin spy network is not to be underestimated and he'll get off your back, said Darth Sage with the Kazekage nodding in understanding. And you'll fund our village in the process, said the Kazekage to remind the Sith of his offer to be a financial backer of Suna. Of course. I now own all of Gado Kenpani and I can spend the money any way I want to spend it. I choose to spend it on Suna, said Darth Sage, as he saw the Kazekage's eyes widen in shock. You're running that Gado Kenpani now? I had heard Gado had died and a new anonymous chairman had been appointed to run it. But I never thought a kid would take control of it, said the Kazekage with the boy letting out a chuckle. Not many people have the privilege of knowing this tidbit of information. I want it to stay like that for now. If the Leaf knew of my existence, they would hunt me down for some past discretions made against them, and if they succeed in taking me away, you lose funding. A lot of funding along with a new enemy you don't want to have in your life, said Darth Sage in a tone that made the Kazekage realize that betraying the Sith's trust would result in retribution from the boy physically and financially on Suna itself. Of course. I would never do anything to jeopardize the safety of my village or risk the chance for Suna to once more rise to greatness, said the Kazekage sweetly while he was sweating on the inside at the threat. I know you won't. Thank you for your time, said Darth Sage, as he left the room, and shut the door behind him with the force. Gado Kenpani HQ. What is this nonsense? Said the CEO of Gado Kenpani, as he saw the young Sith levitate various business venture reports to him, and the other members of the board of directors. You heard me. We're going to do business in Wave Country, but unlike last time with my predecessor, this will be a less hostile version of how to do things, and the people there will have a thriving economy through our products. The company that had almost become their destruction will now become their salvation through the very bridge they built to the mainland, said Darth Sage while the members of the board were not happy with this news. But we lose more money than we gain. You wish to provide funding for schools and hospitals there with no guarantee money will return enough for us to make a profit, said a wrinkled-faced man, who looked like he should retire in the next month, and should have retired years ago. Gentlemen, you are looking at the big picture. As usual you only see what is in your wallet and how to make it fatter. I am doing this because we are a shipping company and like any shipping company, we need people to ship our goods to should they need things. Now my predecessor had this idea where he would basically suffocate Wave Country and bend it to his will so they had no choice in buying things from him at overinflated prices. While this is a good business decision in the good old days when everyone here around me was much younger, it's considered far out of date to work in these times, said Darth Sage, as he rose from his seat and walking around the table while picking up their various emotions with the thoughts behind them. Gado could have succeeded though. He could have owned Wave Country with enough time given to the project, said one of the members of the board the Sith had just walked past. If that's true, then how would the people buy things from him and the company when they are all dead? I saw the people of Wave Country before Gado's fall. They were either dead or dying. People in that condition are very bad for business. Gato didn't know when to stop the suffocation process because he enjoyed seeing it too much and ate like a king while they didn't even have enough meat on their bones to eat each other. Gato lacked finesses, was a cheap man, who spent the bare minimum, and refused to pay what was owed to those that earned it. Don't deny it. He was even stingy on your own paychecks and everything you did wrong could have warranted a pay cut as punishment, said Darth Sage seeing them squirm under his gaze. So, you wish to show our company now has a humane side and reveal it to the people of Wave Country, said the CEO at last when Darth Sage sat down and saw the boy nod. Yes. Officially, we are what this company legally is on paper, so we will act as such, but everything else that we sell illegally will involve us doing business with shinobi villages and giving them an edge. When we give one village something good, we give the rival village something better, and always have something on hand to make them come back for more, said Darth Sage seeing the idea was making money off the different shinobi villages more willing to serve him. Still, it didn't mean they wanted the Sith to rule the company, and still planned to find a way to overthrow him. Do the people of Wave Country know about this? Said Hibiki Goro in charge of the Gato Campania's overall transport coordination system. Yes. I sent a shadow clone to them 2 days ago. The Wave Daimyo was a bit terrified at first in dealing with Gato's successor, but I was able to convince him, and he agreed to let our company do business using only the bridge while not doing anything to alter the structure in any way, said Darth Sage seeing they were very impressed by his actions. What else do you have planned, Sage-sama? Said Masudo Kenshin wanting to know more of the ingenious ways the boy had weighing to do business. You will know things only when I want you to know. Nothing sooner or later will be told until it's needed to be told. Is that understood? Said Darth Sage with the board of directors around him nodding. We understand, sir, said CEO when he realized they weren't going to get anything out of him. Good. Now, as for any other additional plans for the future, I will say that soon I will be heading out to stretch my legs out for a bit and get out of the office for a while. Nothing too long, of course, said Darth Sage while Haku's face showed shock, but was hidden behind her mask, and looked through it at him all the while wondering what was going on inside his head. Any place in particular, Sage-sama? We know several places in the red light district in the city where the entertainment helps businessmen like us to, relax. Said Goro, as he had been a visitor there on several occasions, and enjoyed his time being entertained. Nothing you would enjoy. Besides, while I run this company, you fail to realize I am still considered a child, and doubt those places would even let me in. Even if they did, I'm not interested in enjoying the sinful pleasures of the flesh just yet, and will wait a little longer to indulge myself like you do, said Darth Sage earning a few chuckles from the other members knowing of their fellow board members' vice surrounding that area of the city. With the meeting soon over, the young Sith left last for his office with Haku right beside him, and waited for the doors to close with a sound barrier being put up to ensure further privacy. Following him halfway into the room, Haku stopped at her position she knew was her place to stand, and waited for Darth Sage to sit on his throne. Is everything going according to plan, my master? Said Haku, as she saw him close his eyes for a moment before opening them, and smiling down at her. Yes, Haku. It is. I wasn't lying when I told the board of directors I would be heading out to stretch my legs, as that is what I intend to do, and I have an interesting idea on where to get more recruits, said Darth Sage seeing Haku's face move slightly at the mention of others. Other tools? Said Haku with a mix of hope, suspicion, and maybe fear, perhaps? Yes. While you are a useful tool, Haku, I need more than one, and it would be foolish of me to constantly use you for everything, said Darth Sage to her question while sensing her disappointment at the fact others would be joining to share the duty of being so close to him. I understand, Sage-sama. But, how will you recruit them? Said Haku curiously, as she didn't know where he would look for additional forces, and heard his chuckle echoing throughout the room. Isn't it obvious? I'm going to raid the Chunin exams being held in Konoha this year, said Darth Sage with a grin on his face while Haku's shock was apparent, even with the mask on, and knew this was very bold on his part. Darth Sage, the daring one. Darth Sage, the bold one. That's what you will be known for in regards to being a Sith, right? Said QB with Plagueis agreeing with the fox. You are getting pretty ambitious, my apprentice. Be mindful of your current limit. limits and that you have yet to reach your full potential, said Plagueis while Darth Sage mentally nodded to his masters and guests within his body. I understand my masters, but the Force tells me that the moment to recruit such tools to my side will only occur during this window of time, and a Sith never wastes a perfect opportunity to get what he wants, thought Darth Sage while Plagueis and Kyuubi looked at each other. He has a point. If he's going to recruit potential tools to his side, these exams would be the opening, and like the kid just said, a Sith doesn't ignore opportunity when it knocks, said Kyuubi with Plagueis reaching out to the Force and sensed his apprentice was indeed correct. Yes. Such an action would be considered the will of the Force, but just because it is the will of the Force that compels you, it doesn't mean you can simply just go into the thick of danger without looking, and trust the Force will not cause harm. It tends to have the opposite effect, said Plagueis with his apprentice nodding and thinking clearly on the matter. I won't act before thinking my master, thought Darth Sage knowing each move he made had to be precise and had no room for error. He may be a bold Sith, but Darth Sage was not stupid, and didn't plan on becoming one anytime soon. Chapter 5 Dark Side of the Forest. Konoha was buzzing with activity, as the Chunin exams were days of happening, and many merchants, vendors, and store owners were making their line of goods ready for the foreign customers willing to buy their exotic brands. A large number of Leaf Shinobi were keeping themselves seen throughout the village on high alert, as a large number of foreign Genin teams, and their Jonin senseis came to Konoha to compete in the exams. Among the large group consisted of Suna, Iwa, Kumo, and a few minor shinobi villages for those countries that could fund them while unable to hire from the major ones. Walking through the thick of the groups entering though was a single individual, who walked through the crowds, unseen by the watchful eyes of the host shinobi, and made his way to the seedier part of Konoha. A place where over 90% slept during the day and came out full force during the night, involving the less moral parts of letting out one's frustration in being a shinobi. The part that was awake during the day involved the apartment areas, which were run down, received barely enough money to stay open, and would no doubt be scheduled for demolition in a few years. Throwing a small yet still sizable roll of money at the greedy owner of the apartment he chose, Darth Sage got the key to his room, and asked not to be disturbed for anything. The owner just nodded his head as he looked at the money, not really caring who had purchased the room, and just counted the currency handed to him. Mentally calling the man a fool, the Sith entered his room, shut the door, and examined his surroundings. Not much considering how low budget it is, but I've got to manage given my plan, and sacrifices must be made for it to work, thought Darth Sage, as he used the dark side of the Force to scare away the insects and rats out of his room while making a mental note to not sleep here at all. If anything, this place was just a cover for when the inevitable investigation would be done, and this place searched for his whereabouts when people pointed the Leaf Shinobi in the direction of temporary residency. They wouldn't find him here, of course. He wasn't an idiot like they no doubt wanted him to be from the start, and would only find an empty dirty room before arresting the owner of the establishment for lying before using their means of acquiring information to get what they want. Only they wouldn't, since the owner didn't know anything about the Sith and would just keep shouting he didn't know for days until they finally believed him. Reaching into his robes, Darth Sage pulled out a storage scroll and opened it to reveal his various tools of the trade he acquired from the illegal inventory of weapons, with what he wanted being an item sued by shinobi on occasion. Using the Force, the Sith sent the explosive sealed tags all throughout the room, set them with the extremely rare proximity and intruder detection triggers that came with them. Acquired from a missing Nin a few years back, but due to their rarity, Gato couldn't sell them off to just anyone, and the heat it would bring down on the company if it was known where such items had been acquired. Which was why Darth Sage felt such items were better off in his own hands and used to their fullest potential in this situation. Hokage's office. Any news, Jiraiya? Said the Sandaime, seeing his former student surprisingly nod that he did in fact have something. Maybe. Recently Gato Kenpani announced a new chairman to replace him after his death in Wave Country. Not many know just who the guy is, but the whispers I've been hearing is he's making some interesting changes to the company, and his name is of someone we would be interested in after reading Kakashi's report on his recent mission, said Jiraiya, seeing the Sandaime's eyes widen. You mean it's Darth Sage? Said the Sandaime with Jiraiya nodding. I think it is. Another piece of information I've learned is that a hunter Nin wearing a mask usually worn by Miss Shinobi has been seen there. I don't know if this is the Haku girl the Uchiha fought in Wave Country, but the description is pretty accurate, and that she could be this Darth Sage's right hand. When the guy's not around to run things, she does in his place, and considered to be extremely close to him, said Jiraiya, seeing the Hokage think about this for a second. Can you retrieve her? Perhaps she could be used to persuade him to surrender himself to us, said the Sandaime, knowing it had been done before and just had to be kept a secret from the public eye. It's possible, but I don't know if he's that attached to her, and this is only if it is Haku in the first place. There is also the matter of the Chunin exams popping up now and my search for Naruto, said Jiraiya while the Sandaime sighed heavily. Yes. The girl and Darth Sage can wait a little while longer. After the Chunin exams are over, find out if the girl is working at Gado Kenpani, and bring her back here so Ibiki can find out how close she is to Sai's killer, said the Sandaime, knowing Danzo was working his own sources to finding Darth Sage and try to convert him should a successful capture happen on his end. And Naruto? Said Jiraiya with a small frown. Keep searching, but don't focus on his name, but rather the description, and make sure to emphasize the whisker marks on his face be the key piece of it, said the Sandaime while Jiraiya frowned further. The boy could have gotten wise to us and altered his appearance, said Jiraiya, seeing the Sandaime clearly didn't believe that. Naruto is a child. His mind has no real development and no real understanding of how to blend in, said the Sandaime while Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. Considering he has successfully avoided being found for the past 4 years by my spy network, I'd say that the kid's not so underdeveloped like you think he is, and clearly had a good teacher to help guide him, said Jiraiya while the Sandaime scowled at him. And as a result, an entire building filled with people were slain, said the Sandaime with Jiraiya scoffed at him. Considering how you let people mistreat him, you're lucky the Kyuubi wasn't freed, and this village is still standing. More importantly, you're lucky Kushina and Minato aren't here right now to kick our asses into hell themselves, said Jiraiya angrily while the old Hokage snarled at him and rose to his feet. I had no choice and you know it, said the Sandaime angrily. Liar. You knew Tsunade and I were assigned to be the boy's godparents. Tsunade's not here because you had me lie to her and I went along with it because I was grieving over the loss of my student. You preyed on my grief then just like you preyed on the people's anger when telling them of Naruto's status as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki to stay Hokage, said Jiraiya with the Sandaime slamming his hand on the desk making it shake violently. Enough. I will not stand here and listen to you bad-mouth me anymore on this matter, Jiraiya, said the Sandaime with Jiraiya glaring at his former sensei. I know your reason for hating Naruto, but we both know it wasn't his fault your wife died, and we both know he deserved better when in this village, said Jiraiya before leaping out the window while the Sandaime's elderly face showed a great deal of fury. Konoha Ninja Academy. Darth Sage watched from the shadows of the forest area, as the Chunin hopefuls entered the building where they would be taking the first of 3 major tests to prove they were worthy of the advancement in rank. Some were cocky, arrogant, and outright believed they were going to become Chunin soon without breaking a sweat. Some were fearful of the tests to come, cautious even since many were taking this for the first time, and in the leaf so it was an unknown landscape for them to cross. Hidden dangers with twists, turns, and traps waiting to be sprung without hesitation at the hands of the proctors being put in charge of the exams by the Hokage. The Sandaime Hokage thought Darth Sage, as the very title the old man had, and his own betrayal to the young Sith really burned up his blood. Calming himself, the Sith in training used the Force to redirect the dark side energies in a more profound way, and decided to have a little fun at the expense of the leaf. Going slightly deeper into his current place of hiding, Darth Sage channeled the Force to his eyes, giving him a sense of clarity unseen by those without a bloodline, and could only be rivaled possibly by a Hyuga on account of their own eyes doing something similar. His eyes soon saw the inside of the classroom where the Genin teams had entered. The Uchiha was not there on account of the loss of his teammate, and the Sith smiled at that while knowing the spoiled child would be basking in the glory of being nominated. In fact, out of all of Leaf Shinobi participating, most those his age were in it, and both teams that had Genin his age being very green. There was one team near them that had all 3 Genin appearing to be a year older than them, and the Sith Apprentice could see they were not so green like the others. He saw Suna's team was there too, though whether they were told of the change in plans for the invasion, Darth Sage couldn't tell, but he was sure their Jonin sensei would know before going off with them, and then tell the the 3 genin later before it happened to keep Orochimaru from sniffing out a problem. A Kumo team was there, all female from what he could see, which was surprising since most teams usually consisted of 2 males, and 1 female in a genin squad, so this might have some significance outside of the unusual sight. The Sith also sensed the blonde one with the ponytail had a strange feeling about her and couldn't exactly make it out through the Force despite his best efforts to do so. He would look into it later. The team from IWA was unusual too, as they seemed to have 2 females, and 1 male for a genin squad. From what he could tell using the Force, Darth Sage could see one of them had a connection to bees, as several were buzzing around and talking to her. The second woman was less unique, but had her own bit of exoticness from the pupil-less pink eyes, and sensed she was in fact powerful. Perhaps too powerful to be a genin, but then again so were Kumos, and soon as genin teams being above that rank yet they hit it well. It appears someone has been reading our strategy book, Master, thought Darth Sage in a joking manner, with Plagueis letting out an amused chuckle. Indeed. The arrogant ones will be the first to fall. The more cautious and fearful will not go so easily, said Plagueis while his Sith apprentice used the dark side to influence the sound team that was Orochimaru's from Rice Country. And here we go, thought Darth Sage as he channeled the dark side into the 3 minds of the genin from sound, taunting them with whispers of how the shinobi from the major villages were mocking them in secret, and an example had to be made by taking down a shinobi from the leaf to make everyone be put on notice. The Sith watched with glee, as the sound genin went after one of the leaf shinobi in the corner holding info cards, and reading what he had on them to the other leaf genin he was currently striking up a small conversation with. It also didn't hurt that at the time the man with glasses was going over his cards, the one leaf shinobi with dark shaded glasses had asked if he heard anything about a Darth Sage in the elemental countries, and the conversation was cut off by the surprise attack. However, what the Sith didn't know was that one person in that room knew the truth behind the surprise attack, and was trying to discover the source behind the manipulation. Something happened just then. I sensed an outside energy source travel from outside and into the minds of the sound team, thought one girl with red hair and glasses from grass while trying to pinpoint it with her sensory ability. The kunoichi from grass followed the small trail of dark energy with her abilities, but the problem she found out soon after was the energy would twist, turn, and traverse the forest it came from in an unpredictable manner. Almost like a defense mechanism to protect the source of it from being detected by those that could sense it and throw the pursuer off the trail. Still, the girl was anything if not determined, as she continued following the vast complex trail, and was about to use one of her special abilities to assist when Proctor showed up in an explosion of smoke to get everything started. Oh well. It was fun while it lasted, thought Darth Sage, as he decided to do a little recon of the village, and around the next phase of the Chunin exams when the first one was over. Jonin waiting area. Marino Ibiki? Said Kurenai with Asuma nodding after just telling her who the proctor of the first part of the exam was. Yeah. Not surprising you never heard of him until now. You're still pretty new to being a Jonin. He's the head of the INT department. Anko is his second in command, which in a way surprises me she's never mentioned him when you two get together and talk about things. Anyway, while Anko deals with hurting people physically, Ibiki deals with the mental torturing and breaking people in an almost artistic form, said Asuma while Kurenai suddenly felt cold at the idea of her students facing such a strict individual for the first part of the test. Don't worry, Kurenai. I'm sure Ibiki won't mess them up too badly, said Kakashi, as he was bored, and wanted to pay his fellow Jonin a visit. And to rub it in their faces when their teams failed later on. I don't know about that, my hip rival. Ibiki isn't doing his job correctly if he handles any of the genin with kid gloves. It's why I waited a whole year for my team to join, said Guy with a serious tone in his voice. If that's the case, then I'm going to get it, and not just from my team, said Asuma, as he would have to deal with some of the parents, and made a mental note to avoid Yoshino for a few days knowing she'd come at him with her frying pan of doom. Otherwise known by all the men of the Nara clan as the man whipper, and feminist holy weapon used to beat the lazy males of the clan into doing whatever their wives wanted. Yeah. Inoichi-san isn't going to be happy his princess was so badly shaken up and will want to have a few choice words with you, said Kakashi, as he saw Asuma slump even further, and knew those words would involve being attacked by Yamanaka clanjutsus that would turn his mind into jelly for about 2 weeks. Outside of the room, on a tree about 50 feet from the window outside of the building, Darth Sage saw the various Jonin talking to each other, and saw Suna's assigned Jonin in the far corner keeping to himself. Kumo's own, who was a big dark-skinned guy with swords, was leaning against a wall, and Iwa's Jonin was in another corner. Focusing on the Suna Jonin, the Sith made a mental connection through the force, and decided to have a little talk with the man. "Hello, Suna Jonin. Don't look around, I'm not in the room, and only speak with your mind," said Darth Sage while the Suna Jonin's eyes widened slightly though half his face was covered so no one would see it with their line of sight. "Who are you? What do you want?" thought the Jonin while wondering if this was some kind of jutsu used by the mindwalkers of the leaf. "Calm yourself, Baki, is it? I'm not an enemy. In fact, I met with your Kazekage not that long ago, and I'm going to assume you were told about the secret's change in the plans regarding the invasion?" said Darth Sage, seeing Baki tense slightly, but relaxed a bit, and did a mental nod. He did. "I haven't told my Genin team yet. I was going to inform them of the change after they passed the second part of the exam," thought Baki with Darth Sage nodding. "Smart man. Try not to cause problems before then," said Darth Sage before he ended the connection and left for the Forest of Death. "Hey! B! Did you sense that?" said the 8-tailed Hachibi inside Killer B to its host. "Yeah. Someone was outside this building. Someone dark and powerful," thought B, as he decided not to rap for something so serious, and eyed the window to the room where the strange energy was detected. "Yes, but be warned though. Something here is not what we think it is. The Raikage wanted you to bring a Hyuga back to Kumo and using your Genin team to make it happen. This unknown figure could mess this up for us in your village," said Hachibi, knowing the Raikage had wanted the Hyuga bloodline for a while now in Kumo and this was possibly the only time they could make it happen. "My students can handle it," thought Killer B simply. I hope so," said Hachibi with a hint of worry. Forest of Death. "Okay, you whiny babies, this little number behind me is the Forest of Death, where the second part of the Chunin exams will be held, and where half of you will not advance," said Anko, as she grinned at the slightly nervous Genin teams, and knew more than half of them wouldn't be making it out of this place. Dead or otherwise. "So, what do we have to do?" said Kiba, knowing there was some kind of objective to this part of the test. "Simple. Each team has a scroll. One is the Heaven Scroll, the other is the Earth Scroll, and the goal is to get to the central tower in the Forest of Death with both kind of scrolls in your team's possession. You have 5 days to make to the central tower, which at first may seem like plenty of time, but you also have to consider the different animals, and the various, traps we have set up randomly throughout the place. Oh, I almost forgot, you have to keep your eyes open most of the time since each team has to hunt down another with the opposite scroll, and then make it to the central tower in 5 days, said Anko while thoroughly enjoying the sweat coming down the foreheads of each Genin team. What happens after 5 days? Said Shikamaru while the woman just grinned at him, and it reminded the Nara so much of his mother when she was in one of her evil moods. We come get you if you're not already dead, and we might not be so gentle in carrying you out, said Anko while Shikamaru just mumbled troublesome and of course you would with his Akimichi teammate grumbling about being hungry. What do we do about food? Said Shoji with Anko grinning further. Live off the land and forage. Shinobi have to do that on long-term missions when away from civilized society, said Anko having done it herself on more than one occasion. Any words of advice, said Yujito offhandedly since she was hoping the woman would give it just out of arrogance. Why of course. My advice to all of you, don't die. It's a pain in the ass to do the paperwork, said Anko with a cheesy smile on her face that caused some to face fault onto the ground. Troublesome woman, thought Shikamaru knowing these trees and the time limit were killing his cloud watching time. Before you go in, sign these consent forms saying that in the event you do die, the leaf isn't held responsible, and avoid all liability in your death from all things inside the Forest of Death, said Anko causing another face fault. This is why I read Ika Paradise, thought Kankuro while wish he could read it now, but his sister Temari would just destroy it, and then his manhood out of spite. After the consent forms were signed, each team was randomly given a scroll, and were sent on their way while Anko was privately dancing with glee over how many victims her home away from home would be receiving. From the shadows above in a nearby tree, the Sith saw her dancing around weirdly, and shook his head at the woman's antics before leaping from his spot into the forest of death. He had targets to scout and collect. With Team 8 several hours later. Damn! We already have an Earth Scroll. We need a Heaven Scroll, said Kiba in clear frustration after his team took out the one from Mist. Please keep your voice down, Kiba. We don't know if anyone else is around, said Shino while Hinata nervously looked around with her Byakugan. Like who? If they were around, Akamaru, and I would have smelled them easily, said Kiba confidently while bordering on arrogant. There are ways to conceal one's scent from people like you, Kiba, said Shino simply while the Inuzuka scoffed. Do you really think any of the genin in this exam would know how? Said Kiba seeing Shino nod, which made the Inuzuka growl at the Aburame, and Hinata was getting a bit worried at this sudden team divide. Please don't fight. Not here. This isn't the time or place for it, said Hinata before she sensed something in the trees moving silently through the shadows, watching them. Or was it just watching her? Such a territorial divide in this genin team. What was your sensei thinking when she nominated you three for these exams? Said Darth Sage appearing from the shadows to face the now on guard Leaf Genin Team 8. Who the hell are you? Said Kiba while Akamaru growled at him from the boy's shirt. That's none of your business, runt, said Darth Sage while looking from the Inuzuka to the Aburame and then finally the Hyuga girl nervously trying to keep a firm gentle fist stance. What did you say? Said Kiba loudly while Akamaru growled again even louder. Why are you here? Said Shino, as he had his bugs get ready to fight, and yet sensed they were hesitant given the strange energy that swirled around the stranger. Simple. I'm here to recruit only the most worthy of tools to my side, said Darth Sage seeing them tense up at his words. We are shinobi of the Leaf. Our loyalty is to the village and its Hokage, said Shino, as he saw the Sith grin behind the hood of his robes, and those eyes boring right into them. Your loyalty, while admirable, is sadly misplaced. I should know. He betrayed me since the day I was born, said Darth Sage with Shino raising an eyebrow and saw Hinata falter a bit. So, you are from Konoha, said Shino while wondering who among their age group had left the village and gone so far to abduct its own people under the Hokage's nose. Observant. It's a shame you're not the one I seek. You'd be a useful asset to my cause, said Darth Sage while Kiba growled louder. Yeah, well I'm not going anywhere with you. I smell something foul in your scent, said Kiba with the Sith letting out an amused-sounding chuckle. You? My dear Inuzuka, who said anything about wanting you? Said Darth before he had the Hyuga girl and saw her stiffen in fear of him. You bastard. Hinata, run. Go outside the forest and get help from a Jonin or the one of the ANBU. Said Kiba knowing they were going to be disqualified, but at this point it didn't really matter, and they had to protect their teammate from being taken. Fool, said Darth Sage before charging forward, ducked under a swipe from Kiba's now clawed hand, countered with a kick to the Inuzuka boy's face, and used the force to push the Aburame into a tree. Only for the boy to turn into millions of bugs. Turning quickly, the Sith saw the Hyuga girl by the name of Hinata running through the trees with Shino right beside her, and went in pursuit of them. Or would have if not for the dog the Inuzuka had biting his ankle and growling at him. However, rather than be upset, the Sith just smirked before going poof. To reveal he was in fact a shadow clone, and everything was going according to plan in capturing the Hyuga. Shino was looking back, sensing Hinata's strange kidnapper was not behind them, and yet it did little to ease the sense of dread the Aburame felt right now. Hinata herself was now terrified of the fact she was once again being targeted, possibly for her clan's bloodline, and be sold to the highest bidder once caught. It wasn't the first time someone had tried to kidnap her, and Hinata doubted this would be the last since Kumo had been persistent in getting the secrets of the Byakugan. He's not behind us. Don't stop, said Shino before he was thrown violently mid-leap into a nearby tree by an invisible power. By all means. Don't stop. It makes the case so much more fun for me, said Darth Sage, now appearing in front of the Hyuga girl, and saw she was once again in her gentle fist stance. Did Kumo send you? Said Hinata, seeing the figure scoff. Do you see a Kumo headband? No. I'm not here to take you them or any other village for that matter, said Darth Sage while Hinata looked confused. Then why are you trying to abduct me? Said Hinata, feeling frustrated by this. Because I see your future. Your potential is wasted here, said Darth Sage, as Hinata scowled at him, and sensed his words hit home on a personal level. You don't know anything, said Hinata, as she tried to hold back her anger, but it was so difficult, and it showed. Oh, I know many things, my dear. I know your cousin blames you for his father's death. I know your father hates you because of how you remind him of your late mother. Your sister Hanabi hates you after being nurtured to do so by your arrogant father. How your clan elders want to mark you with the cagebird seal and move you into the branch family to be a servant. Am I getting pretty close to the truth? Said Darth Sage, seeing the girl's eyes now swelling with tears and the anger growing. Shut up, said Hinata, while her anger seemed to grow where it would normally shrink from such hurtful words. Why? Because it hurts? Truth like that will always hurt. Especially when we've been living a lie. I know. I lived a lie once. Here, in this very village, and the one orchestrating it was none other than the Sandaime Hokage himself. Do you not remember me, Hyuga Hinata? Do you not remember the blonde boy, who saved you from those bullies that picked on you because of your clan status, and thought they could get away with it? Do you not remember the boy, who took a beating while you ran to get help, and never came back due to your clan not wanting to get involved, said Darth Sage, as he remembered the fight, and how he lost to those older boys? Though they would be pissing blood for a while, and the scolding he got from the Hokage for unnecessary roughness with them was more than worth it. And Naruto? Said Hinata, as she saw the boy smile more at her behind his hood, but then frown like he was sensing something, and spun around to catch Kiba by the neck. Get away from Hinata, you murderer! Said Kiba while trying to swipe at the Sith with his clawed hands, and only managed to knock the hood back with the wind from each missed blow. And made Hinata gasp. After Naruto had saved her from the bullies, she went one of the Hyuga branch family members, and told them what had happened with the blonde boy being attacked in her place. Hinata thought the branch family member would assist in protecting the boy from the abuse, but instead he guided her home, ignoring the protest of her voice trying to command him to help Naruto. The branch member ignored the Hyuga girl, and basically dragged her away to the Hyuga clan compound. Upon meeting her father, Hinata had told him everything, but rather than be angry at the bullies for smearing the name of the Hyuga clan through his daughter, Hayashi had become infuriated at how she did nothing against them from the start, and had to be saved by the demonic abomination that was Uzumaki Naruto. Ah, I take it you know what I did before leaving this place, said Darth Sage with a grin before throwing the Inuzuka into a nearby tree. I know of it. You butchered the people at the orphanage 4 years ago. The people kept saying you were a monster, a demon in human skin, and your actions that day proved it. Said Kiba with Darth Sage scoffing at them before putting his hood over his face. As if the people in the Leaf are any less guilty in their treatment of me. I've been beaten, stabbed, forced to survive off of eaten rotten food, if any food at all from that place, and rainy cold weather when they kick me out. Growing up, you had your clan to comfort you during dark times, a mother's love when sad, her kiss on your forehead at night with whispered words of I love you before going to sleeping in your warm bed, and feeling that your family would be there for you, said Darth Sage, feeling his anger at the Inuzuka slowly rising within him. It doesn't give you the right to hurt them, Naruto, said Shino, limping into view with the Sith apprentice glaring at the Aburame. As if you're one to talk, Aburame. How many times have people whispered at how your clan was filled with freaks? How many times have people crushed bugs in your presence knowing your people hated it? I know. There are times when your emotions reach the surface of even your stoic, seemingly emotionless persona, and want to unleash every bug inside of you onto them, said Darth Sage, seeing Shino twitch slightly. How does he know that? Thought Shino, seeing the Sith let out a chuckle. Your thoughts betray you. So do the bugs when it comes to these people that scorn your clan for being different. Still, you cool down in the end on the belief logic shall prevail, and people will think logically in the end. Sadly, not every does, said Darth Sage, as he saw Shino's hand twitch, and turned his attention back to Hinata. Don't listen to him. He killed those people. He killed Sai, said Kiba while struggling against the tree, and saw Akamaru appear across from him hiding in the bushes waiting to strike. And I would do it again without flinching. I tire of this conversation and I have to be elsewhere. More candidates outside of you await me, said Darth Sage, as he used the force to slam Kiba's head against the tree, and made Shino fall down into slumber before focusing once again on Hinata. I'm sorry I didn't come back for you, Naruto. I wanted to. I swear it, said Hinata, as part of her feared he would attack, and it felt wrong to fight him after all he had done for her. I know. Which is why your team will be spared further if you surrender to the influence of my power, said Darth Sage, as he used his power to make Hinata sleepy, but her mind was so focused it was not as easy, and was unconsciously fighting him. You promise? Said Hinata, seeing her former hero frown slightly. Master, what do I do? You know how I feel about keeping promises, thought Darth Sage to his master, also thinking this over. Agree to it. Just because you spare them now doesn't mean they will be spared later in the future, said Plagueis, seeing his Sith apprentice nod. I promise, Hinata, said Darth Sage at last while seeing Hinata lower her defenses against him. Thank you, Narut. Oh, said Hinata, as she swayed under the invisible power that had entered her mind, and commanded it to shut down into the realm of dreams. All too easy, said Darth Sage, as he caught the girl, and placed her in one of the several storage scrolls in his possession. Taken from Gato's inventory of things pilfered from dead shinobi, and couldn't be used without raising red flags from shinobi villages. One down. Several more to go. I say go after the IWA girls next. The one with the bees seemed to be doing this to regain her lost honor, said Kyubi, having gotten that feel from the girl. And the other two on Iwa's team? Thought Darth Sage to both Plagueis and Kyubi. Kill the male shinobi. He is of no use, said Plagueis with his Sith apprentice nodding, and turned to Kyubi. Agreed. Kill the male shinobi of the team, but recruit the two females. I sense they are each descended from a strong bloodline, said Kyubi, knowing that those two from IWA would be most helpful to its vessel. With the Hyuga girl successfully captured, he made several shadow clones, and sent it with his prize away from the leaf. With his shadow clones off to send his first new tool from the leaf back to Gato Kanpani, and went deeper into the forest search of his other prey scattered throughout the region. Iwa's Genin team. Damn leaf shinobi and their forest of death. So many insects here, and we can't stay long enough to capture at least one for study, said Suzumabachi, as she knew several bees here were above normal, and could breed them in IWA with the proper conditioning to bring back the greatness of her clan. Quit your complaining. We'll get through this place, beat those little leaf genin runts at their own exams, and show IWA is superior to them in every way, said Kuratsuchi, as she only entered the Chunin exams under the pretense of being a genin to scout the future enemy IWA would have to face, and take a few of them out before another conflict began. I'm sorry to disappoint you three, but such an event won't be taking place anytime soon, said the figure appearing from the shadows and standing in front of their intended path. Who the hell are you? Said the only male and chubby one at that among of his squad. My name is Darth Sage and these two are coming with me, said the Sith, as he pointed to two female IWA shinobi, and put the group instantly on guard. And why would Suzumabachi and I come with a runt like you? Said Kuratsuchi while the Sith apprentice just looked her dead in the eyes. A runt? My dear, you are going to regret ever calling me that. In fact, when this is all over, you will be calling me Master. Said Darth Sage, as he unsheathed Lunar Eclipse, and could feel his connection to the dark side of the Force become even stronger. I've had enough of you, punk. I'm going to shove that bathrobe you're wearing down your throat in AAH. Said the male IWA shinobi, as he moved forward, not believing the boy was the dangerous entity few knew was in fact true, and in a quickly slash had been cut diagonally in half. before the top half of his body slowly started sliding down when the power of gravity decided to make it descend to the ground. You IWA shinobi disappoint me. Surely you both can do better than he did? Said Darth Sage, as he saw the two women look at him in shock, and then get ready for a fight. Water style, water trumpet jutsu, said Kuratsuchi, as she launched an attack at the Sith, and hit him dead on. Only for it to be stopped by an unseen power that he used to hold back the water with his outstretched left arm and hand. What? That's not possible, said Suzumabachi, as she saw the water fall around them, and then at the Sith. So narrow-minded. No wonder your clan has lost its status, said Darth Sage, as he saw her eyes widen, and clenching of teeth from that face now filled with anger. I'll show you. B-bomb jutsu, said Suzumabachi, as she unleashed the bees with explosive tags at him, and waited for them to explode with more than enough power to wipe that confident smirk off his face. What she didn't expect was the boy raising his left hand again, shooting lightning from his fingertips, and frying every single bee she sent his way. They dropped like stones, but smelled like burned corpse, and when Darth Sage walked on one of them, it made a loud crunch. Noise that made Suzumabachi flinch. Such a waste. I think I see the reason now why your village shuns your clan. Still, you are not without your potential, and I can make you more powerful than your predecessors if you join me. I'd rather not waste my time trying to break your mind down and work from the ground up and rebuilding it, said Darth Sage, seeing both women glaring at him. Like that will win us over, you little shit. I'd rather die than be your puppet or sex slave, said Kuratsuchi while the Sith scoffed at her. I have no interest in the pleasures of flesh just yet. Even if I did, I would prefer it with a willing female partner, and not some mindless sex doll. I do have standards, said Darth Sage, as he had been having certain talks with Kyubi on learning about the female body, and was preparing him for the inevitable first time he would get with a woman. Plagueis wasn't sure if his Sith apprentice would need it, but then again, his species was that of immune, and not a full-blooded human like the boy with those basic instincts to lay with another with the chance of reproducing. Still, for all Plagueis knew, his prodigy of a student would be laying with various women, and embrace passion like the female laying next to him after they're fornicating with. All the same, brat, we're going to pass on being your captives and future servants, said Kuratsuchi, preparing another jutsu, but found one of her hands yanked backwards, and had the blade of the Sith's dangerous-looking sword against her neck. I have no problem killing you. If I can't wield you as my tools, I can make it so no one else can, and right now you are leaning towards that general direction, said the shadow clone version of the Sith. Agreed. Tools that won't obey a master, who can make them reach new heights, are not worth the fuss of obtaining, and should be destroyed, said Darth Sage, as he readied lunar eclipse to slice through Suzumabachi, and then order his shadow clone to kill Kuratsuchi when the former put her hands up and surrender. Wait. I give up. Just don't kill Kuratsuchi-sama, said Suzumabachi, as she saw the blade touching the flesh of her IWA teammate, and already it had drawn blood from it. Suzumabachi, said Kuratsuchi while giving the woman a glare. If I become your tool, will you spare Kuratsuchi-sama? Said Suzumabachi, seeing the Sith thinking it over. I don't know. I'm not real big on showing mercy. Your dear teammate Kuratsuchi knows my name, she'll report me to her superiors, and will no doubt bring a lot of heat I don't need down on me. Plus, I have no guarantee you'll behave yourself afterwards, and not try to run back to IWA. For all I know, you'll run off before I'm done showing just how rewarding being my loyal servant can be when compared to your own village, since its shinobi would sooner kill you than hear your side of things, and just remove you that way, said Darth Sage, as he let out a small sigh, and saw both women were starting to sweat a little at where his line of thought was heading. Please, Sage-sama. She's the granddaughter of the current Sannamed Kazekage and I'm the granddaughter of the first Kazekage, said Suzumabachi pleadingly while the Sith raised an eyebrow at that. I see. So, she has pull with your current Kazekage, then. Interesting. Okay. You talked me into it. I'll spare her and take you back with me to become my new subordinate. In exchange, she must promise on the life of her grandfather, and entire family, that no IWA shinobi will come after me, said Darth Sage, knowing once the woman made that little promise, she would be bound to it, and that Kazekage would have no choice unless he wanted to lose his life along with the rest of the family. I promise on my life, as the daughter of the Sandaime Kazekage, and our family, that no IWA shinobi will come after you for this, said Kuratsuchi, while the Sith narrowed his eyes and used force choke on Suzumabachi while levitating her in the air. Say it and mean it. Or you both die, said Darth Sage viciously, as he saw right through her, and his shadow clone pressing lunar eclipse closer in the neck of the woman to cause more blood to leak out. All right. All right. I swear it under pain of death of myself, my grandfather, and my entire family, that no IWA shinobi in our village will come after you. I promise, said Kuratsuchi, with Darth Sage narrowing his eyes at her before releasing the force choke on Suzumabachi before using his power to make the woman collapse on the ground in a force-induced sleep. You're not going to make it to the next round. If you tell that Kazekage anything about me, I'll kill her, then him, and finally yourself. Do I make myself clear? Said Darth Sage, while Kuratsuchi nodded slightly and risked further injury to her neck. What do I tell my grandfather? He'll demand an explanation from me, said Kuratsuchi, knowing her grandfather wouldn't just believe too well beyond Genin level shinobi had lost to this place. Simple. Lie. Lie your heart out to him. Make something up. Just keep me out of it. You betray this small act of mercy, and not even the entire shinobi army of IWA will stop me from making you weep like a little girl at the despair I will bring to your doorstep, said Darth Sage before force pushing her into a nearby tree, and went to work in acquiring his second tool from the Forest of Death. It was time for number 3. With Grass Genin team. Shit. Stupid forest. Stupid team. Stupid glasses. Stupid Chunin exams, said Karen, as she along with her entire team had been attacked by what could only be called a bear pumped up on steroids, and lost both her teammates to the damn thing while she became the survivor of the mauling it gave them. Only to trip while running away from that pissed off bear, lose her glasses, which made her unable to see clearly, and most likely die a painful, humiliating death unbefitting of a shinobi at the hands of the bear. She had been so distracted since entering the Forest of Death, as she was overwhelmed with chakra signatures, none of which were remotely close to the dark one she had sensed earlier outside the Leaf Shinobi Academy building, and had been searching for it while in this place. Sadly, it was the main reason Karen had missed the bear coming down on her team, and got them killed while she was soon to be killed. She could hear the bear moving closer, howling in anger for something Karen's team no doubt did when entering the Forest of Death to piss it off, and scrambled faster for the glasses. The sound of the beast suddenly howling out in pain made the girl work even faster, knowing that while the bear was bad enough, whatever was hurting the bear was even worse, and yet it gave Karen a means to escape from whatever the thing was that made her want to face the bear instead. When she did find her glasses, Karen put them on, adjusting them so her eyesight would be perfectly focused, and came upon the sight of a robed figure surrounded by the dark energy she had sensed. The bottom of his black combat boots were caked in blood of the now dead animal, the sword in the stranger's hand radiated that same dark energy, and yet was being held back by the user out of some sense to remain unseen by others. His robes concealed most of his clothing, but she saw it was black too, with a hint of metallic armor around several areas to ensure protection while keeping flexibility, and a hood covering any hair he might possess while shadowing the face with 3 whisker marks on each cheek barely being seen. You weren't on my list of people I wanted to take, but I see the potential, and I don't intend to waste it, said Darth Sage, seeing the girl back up away from him until she hit a tree. Who are you? What do you want from me? Said Karen, as she saw him approach, and felt the dark energy surround her form. It almost seemed to move faster the more she began to fear it. All in due time, my new servant. All in due time. Now sleep, said Darth Sage, with his words coming out of his mouth in a soothing tone, as he used the force to make the girl fall asleep under his power, and quickly sealed her up in a storage scroll. You do realize most of the soon-to-be tools in your possession are female, right? Said Kyubi, seeing its vessel stop and thought for a moment to realize the fox was in fact right. Perhaps. It just proves females are more competent than their male counterparts in being useful and powerful tools for the Sith, thought Darth Sage while QB just chuckled. We'll see, said QB, but more to himself than either its vessel or Plagueis himself, having noticed what the fox did in the boy's choices of acquiring useful tools for shinobi. Still, Plagueis couldn't deny the females of the human species showed more promise in being loyal subordinates than the males, and with greater potential in their skills too. So, for now, the Sith spirit would let his Sith apprentice have these women in his ranks, and see just how far they could go in terms of helping the boy achieve his goals. And if his apprentice got to enjoy the pleasures of the flesh like some Sith did in the past 1,000 years when he got older with them, then so be it. Leaf Genin Team 9. YOSH. We will win this day, my youthful teammates, said Lee while Ten groaned, resisting the urge to smash her spandex-wearing teammate into the ground 6 feet under with a spiked club, and Niji, while he was going through many activations of his eyes. The only reason Niji didn't strike Lee's chakra points to cause him unimaginable pain at the moment was because it wouldn't do any good. Damn chakra level being high enough to only support the boy's life. Lee, if you keep yelling like that, every shinobi will come after us, and while that is not necessarily a bad thing, I have no intention of fighting all of them, said Niji, as he just needed one Earth Scroll, and they could get to the central tower. If Lee had his way, they fight everyone, and bring every scroll from every team with them to prove their youthfulness. Oh, how Niji hated that word. It should be abolished from the dictionary of the world. Banned from every being spoken by anyone under the pain of death. Then Niji would be able to legally kill Lee without even trying. Now only his Hyuga pride wouldn't get in his way. The branch family prodigy of the clan could do an evil tyrant laugh that would bring about dark clouds, thunder, and the evil lightning that came with the laugh. You don't have to fear any potential threats. I am the only one you have to face, said Darth Sage from behind them and saw the Genin all getting ready for a fight. Identify yourself, said Niji quickly, as he got into his gentle fist stance, and his eyes now active. I am Darth Sage, Dark Lord of the Sith, said the Sith while the team stiffened slightly at his name. You were the one in Wave Country. The one responsible for the death of Sai from Genin Team 7, said Ten with a sword out and ready to strike. Perhaps. Not that you should care. He would have killed you all in a heartbeat if ordered by his superiors. Sai was a drone to a much bigger hive, said Darth Sage, as he stayed unmoving, and began analyzing each of them for their potential. What do you want from us, Sage-san? Said Lee while in his strong fist taijutsu stance and prepared for the inevitable battle. You. More precisely the two of you to join me. Said Darth Sage while Niji scoffed, Ten scowled, and Lee shook his head in refusal. Why would you want Lee? He is not what you call the ideal shinobi? Said Niji while seeing the figure in front of him just laugh. Through your narrow-minded eyes perhaps, but I see potential in him, and I know when there is potential in someone. Your sensei was smart to train you, Rock Lee. Despite your so-called handicap, you are much stronger than the Hyuga is, and he knows it too. It's why he puts you down. It's why he tries to instill a sense of negativity on you. He fears your potential and power because it will destroy the lie that he has built the foundation of his life upon, said Darth Sage while Lee's eyes widened and looked at Niji currently scowling deeply at the Sith. Don't listen to him, Lee. He speaks nonsense, said Niji venomously at the Sith. Do I? Listen to me, Lee. I was once like you. Shunned by people. Made fun of at times too, if only for different reasons, and hated for it. Like he hates you. Like he hates his cousin Hinata, who Niji would kill without a second thought, and without care of who was watching, said Darth Sage seeing Niji's eyes widen in shock. How does he know that? Thought Niji seeing the Sith grin viciously at him. But let's not take my word for it. Let's settle this in an honorable fashion. A one-on-one fight against each of you. The winner decides the fate of loser, said Darth Sage knowing Lee would not refuse a fight while the other two would be more reluctant. Yash. I accept. If I win, you will surrender yourself into our custody, and be brought before Hokage-sama for questioning, said Lee with the Sith nodding. And if I win, you must cast away being a Konoha shinobi, and pledge your loyalty to me. Deal? Said Darth Sage with Lee nodding in agreement. I accept. Said Lee before charging forward a second later, and the Sith caught his fist before it could make contact. You're an eager one, aren't you? You will prove to be a most useful tool to my plans, said Darth Sage, as he blocked more strikes from Lee, using his combat skills taught by Kyuubi, and Darth Plagueis, knowing there would come a time when fighting in close combat would be a must for him. With all due respect, Sage-san, but I have no intention of being loyal to anyone other than the Hokage and the Leaf, said Lee, as he blocked a kick and retaliated with his own that the Sith blocked before throwing him into a tree. Your current Hokage is not someone you should stay loyal to, Lee-san. It's because of him I left the Leaf 4 years ago, and went on my own to achieve greatness, said Darth Sage, as he saw Lee get up and charge at him again. Once again did battle. He's actually holding his own against Lee. That shouldn't be possible, said Tenten in disbelief, as she saw the two moving at equal speed, and the Sith showing no signs of slowing down in the slightest. He's not even using his chakra. He's using something else. Something dark and cruel, but I can barely see with my eyes. What is it? Thought Niji, as he watched Darth Sage hit Lee with an uppercut, and then followed up with a spin kick. Lee was sent flying back into another tree before he tried getting up, only to have his foe upon him, striking viciously at key points of his body, until one final blow to the head sent him crashing down, and out like a light. The Sith apprentice had just taken out a storage scroll when a kunai hit the tree in front of him, but young boy didn't care about the weapon, as he knew it was a warning from the female of Lee's teammate to stop what he was about to do, and turned his head slightly at them. Care to throw your hat into the ring and make the same wager? Said Darth Sage, seeing the girl looking at him with a murderous fury in her eyes. No. I'm stopping you from taking my teammate, said Tenten, with the Sith letting out an amused chuckle before pulling out the kunai thrown at him from the tree. You're very skilled. You could have thrown this at me dead on, yet this was merely a warning shot to stay away from Lee, and hoped it would have the intended effect. It did not, said Darth Sage, as he quickly made a shadow clone, and handed it the storage scroll to do his job for him while he handled the girl himself. Shut up. I don't care what deal you made with Lee, he's not going with you, and you're not leaving here unless it's to face the Hokage, said Tenten before she threw another kunai at the shadow clone, but was easily stopped by the Sith, who used the kunai in his hands, and smirked at her for the attempt. Your loyalty to him is commendable. I will enjoy having such a skilled tool under my command, said Darth Sage, and saw the girl get angrier. We're not some weapon like a sword or kunai you can just use before throwing away when it's no longer necessary to use us, said Tenten, with the Sith once more laughing at her. Sure, you are. A Kage from one of the shinobi villages do it all the time. You think a shinobi becomes a missing for the hell of it? No. Some of them leave because the Kage of their village feels threatened by them and secretly orders their death while covering it up with a story that the public will not be able to dispute. Your Hokage is a hypocrite and will betray you, just as he betrayed me, said Darth Sage before turning and giving his shadow clone a head motion to move out. Out. Come back here, said Tenten, running after the shadow clone, but caught in midair, and then thrown back down into the ground. Don't worry. You'll see him again after I've defeated you, said Darth Sage, and saw Tenten get up before looking at Niji. Niji. What are you doing? Go after this guy's copy and get Lee, said Tenten, while Niji just stayed focused on the Sith. Why? Lee is weak. One less pathetic shinobi in our ranks and on our team, said Niji, while mentally screaming out that it was not him and the Sith had infiltrated his mind to temporarily speak for him. What? How can you say that? Said Tenten while glaring at the Hyuga. See? I told you. Niji doesn't want Lee around because his teammate will outshine him and the so-called Hyuga prodigy would be considered a joke. Just like with you, said Darth Sage while keeping his fatigue at such constant using of the Force against Niji from showing on his face. You're lying, said Tenten, as she glared at the Sith now, and he just smirked at how her anger was blinding the girl's mind. Really? Has he ever shown any interest in you as a friend? How long have you tried to get Niji to open up, but receive only coldness in return, and simply used like a tool for his own means of getting stronger? Said Darth Sage, seeing the girl pause in reaching for a kunai to think about her entire year of being with Niji training. How he always turned her down when she asked the Hyuga prodigy to eat with her. How he'd command her to work on his training regiment while barely getting her own done. How she would encourage Lee while Niji would scoff and look at them coldly like they had it so much better than them. How he considered both her and Lee to be commoners when compared to the Hyuga clan regardless if he was a branch family member. He's right. Niji has been treating me like a tool for his own ends. I've been having my growth stunted by training with him, and deep down, I think he knew it, thought Tenten at the horrible realization kicked in. I would never treat you like that. With my help, you would grow stronger, as I need strong and loyal tools to help me achieve my goals, said Darth Sage, seeing the girl glare at him once again, though her anger was aimed more for Niji than himself. And when I'm no longer useful? Said Tenten, questioned, seeing the Sith smirk. You really think I would just cast you aside with a flick of my wrist? I want all the tools I possess to reach their maximum potential in life and use it to its fullest while under my command. Only through me can you achieve a power greater than anything this village has, and your own goal of being strong just like Senju Tsunade herself. Said Darth Sage, as he saw into the girl's mind and her heart's desire. At the moment, Tenten didn't know what to believe, as she wanted to be stronger than any kunoichi in the leaf, and be just like the famous medic Nin Senju Tsunade. Her idol was one of the three Sannin, renowned the world over as the greatest kunoichi of her time, and considered the best medic Nin to ever live. Tenten's dream was to be strong like her idol, to be on the same level just like her, and be considered the greatest of all time in the weapons field. Don't be swayed by him, Tenten. Fight him, thought Niji, as he saw Tenten looking so lost and confused at what to do next. Until the Sith did it for her and knocked Tenten out with one chop to the back of the neck before turning to face Niji. Thank you for your help, Niji-san. I now have another useful tool thanks to your vocal assistance. Said Darth Sage before using Sith Lightning on the Hyuga prodigy while using just enough to knock the boy out. Making another batch of shadow clones, he had them seal up Tenten and then leave for the safest place to leave the forest of death undetected. After the shadow clones left, the Sith apprentice found a nearby tree to recover his strength, and decided this was good first day in looting shinobi from different villages, while the leaf would take the blame in letting it happen. Still, the Force warned him of the dangers lurking in this place, and to stay on guard until he could fully recover. Rest, my apprentice. You have done well. Tomorrow will be an even greater bounty of tools for you to collect, said Plagueis, as he saw his tired Sith apprentice resting and needing a reprieve for a little while until strong again to repeat it all over again. By the time this was over, the Sandaime Hokage would like a fool, and the leaf would be in disgrace with its allies becoming the Siths in secret. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction. Looking forward to having you on board again.